Eric Levenhagen here, taking you down the true path to financial harmony. Today I want to talk about a trap that I see a lot of business owners, practice owners fall into, which is working too hard to get average results. Specifically, I want to talk about using financial benchmark data to measure the financial performance of your business, which can be useful. Now, if you don't know, financial benchmarks are a comparison tool. They show you how the average businesses in your industry are performing, and they seem to give you targets to try and achieve. So don't get me wrong here, benchmarks can be good if you are new or unsure of what to expect in business for yourself, but be aware that there are several reasons that I advise people not to rely on that data for too long. So let me give you three of those reasons right here. The first is how the data is collected. You know, there's a lot of ways firms and organizations can collect data to develop benchmarks. So you want to be sure to know how that data is being collected and confirmed. Collecting financial data, from public companies is relatively easy. The types of companies you'd find on a stock exchange, let's say. Easier than for private companies. Public companies report their financials in a standardized process. They're available to the public and reviewed or audited by larger CPA firms. So this lends some sort of consistency and comparability to the data. But private company financial data, like your small business, is not reported with that standardized process. This leads to inconsistent data, and it's going to have an impact on the comparability of the final results. So just be aware of that. So the second item we want to talk about is unverified data. Usually a company or a trade association gathers this financial information through the use of informal surveys. So a lot of companies, private companies, do not have large or independent CPA firms performing an audit, let alone a review or some other type of attestation service, right? So these surveys tend to be completed by maybe one of several different people. It could be the owner of the business or practice themselves. Maybe it's their spouse or an office manager, maybe an outsourced bookkeeper, rarely perhaps the CPA. The problem there is that each of those people have a very different understanding of what's being asked on the survey and how to come up with those numbers. And what's more is that the quality of the bookkeeping system that they're getting those numbers from can vary greatly. All of this inconsistency, again, is going to lead to bad results overall. But my biggest argument with working with financial benchmark data has to be relying on them for too long. The benchmark data that I've seen is not weighted for the individual success of the owner. So you get the best performers, those that are reaching all their life goals on one end, mixed with average and mediocre companies and practices that are barely surviving or even perhaps failing or on the path to failing. So the result then is that we get these targets based on businesses by all of these averages. And the true question then becomes, why would you want to bust your tail in your own practice to wind up being average, right? So I personally would rather work harder and smarter to achieve and transcend what the top performers in my industry are doing, not the average owner who's barely getting by or not making enough money. So the alternative approach that I think you'll find valuable is what we offer to clients is don't set goals based on inconsistent data and average results. Benchmarking is good for, like I said, those new to an industry, but use them to set a starting point or a minimum baseline that you can work to achieve. Once you transcend that baseline, don't stop. Continue to look for ways to improve the financial performance in your own practice, because in the end, it doesn't take comparing yourself to others to confirm your success. It's what you're able to do for yourself. Compare you to you. You can achieve your personal goals without compromising the quality of service to your customers. So I urge you, leave this comparison game behind.